Okay, so we're now recording on Evier, so everything from now on, people can listen in. So this is just going to be internal for us at Logical Outcomes for the moment, and it's really going to be, this video is going to be useful for my team and everyone else's, anyone who's working with SIS at the moment, kind of wanting to understand how things are connected, and especially this first bunch of work we're going to be doing with our pilot clients, the pilot projects. So I had just, we're assuming everyone's watched the videos from the Get Started with SIS link there on the top left. The overview I thought was actually quite helpful to kind of give me a beginning of an understanding of how many things are going on in this one website, because there's really 3 different tools almost within this one SIS. So yeah, as you were saying before we got started, Gillian, it's going to be a bit scattered. We're going to be a little bit all over the place, but we're just trying to, my objective during this call is to try to get myself oriented so I understand what's happening and what we're doing, and obviously we can't solve everything because we haven't done it yet, but that's kind of the idea.
And this is going to be a real temporary video, because things are going to change quickly, and so it's only going to be relevant probably for a couple of weeks until we redo it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. And so if people are bored, they can double speed it. And so let's talk about the agenda that I'm hoping to cover. I would like to talk about the evaluation tools, the whole evaluation tools section. And I want to talk about it from 2 perspectives. And one of them is we're modeling what it will be like to work with an agency to set up an evaluation system for them on this platform, on the SIS platform. And for that, you've got the hat of somebody who is leading this evaluation from Logical Outcomes. So we're actually building it for Logical Outcomes right now.
Yeah.
And you've got another perspective, another role, and that is what are all the underneath hidden tasks that have to happen in order to make it work? So what do we need to do with Lyme survey? What is the relationship? How does the data get from the survey to DHIS2? How do we build the reports? Exactly. And so that's why we're going to be shifting back and forth. That's right? Okay. Yeah. So let's start from the perspective of you running it from Logical Outcomes. So you're a real user. You're one of the pilot tests, and you're going to be running this instead of me in the future. But for right now, I'm starting it.
So I'm acting now as a client organization, the organization being Logical Outcomes.
Exactly.
Trying to build a pilot.
That's right. So you're let's pretend it's actually working underneath, and you're a pilot. So this is our first meeting, and first I would make sure that you'd watch those 2 videos and ask if they had any questions, and then we would have a conversation about that. And then I would say, okay, so I'm just going to pitch into it. Before we get into all of these different subsections, talk to me for a minute about what you're hoping for this evaluation. What is your organization hoping to achieve by setting up this evaluation service?
Right. So at this point, I mean, improving our collection methods and standardizing our measures so that we can use other data sets from other organizations or other places to compare what we're doing and blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's kind of that stuff, right?
Well, that's right. And we don't have to get into it deeply right now, but I really am interested. So you really do have the perspective. You've been given some guidance by Sarah, but you also, as a senior person that's been around, you have your own ideas about what's important. And so let's just start with what you've been asked by Sarah, and also in your own thinking, what would be useful to Logical Outcomes as a whole organization if we were collecting information and responding to some evaluation data about our own practices?
Oh, geez.
This is where people are going to be, right? This is exactly what they're going to be taken off guard. Like, oh, like, how are you going to use the information? What do you need?
Right. So I'm a little bit caught, kind of straddling a fence here.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I guess at the moment, like, in terms of logical outcomes, I currently don't know what data logical outcomes is collecting in terms of our own processes. I know that Sarah does some like follow-ups with clients, but I don't know how formalized any of that is or where the notes are, or what we're trying to track from any of these follow-up conversations.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that we should start out by asking the people in the it's probably going to be more than one person, so it's generally between 2 to 3 people in these meetings, and we should start out by saying, what is your role? And then we should start out by saying, well, what are your hopes and fears about this evaluation? What do you think?
Yeah, what is your role? What are your hopes and fears? Start. This is session 1. Yeah, maybe I'm misunderstanding these pilot projects. My understanding, because I always work with DHIs too, so when people come to me, by that point, everyone kind of knows what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So we're kind of at a place where these organizations have said, like, we need to reassess our logic model, or but we don't know what we're doing. I mean, I guess like it's a self-selective group to an extent, right? We're not just tapping people on the shoulder who don't want to do this.
Yeah, so like 8 months ago or so, something like that, Ocasio sent out a message to some agencies saying, hey, are you guys interested in, they sent out a survey to all their agencies, and they said, we're setting up this evaluation system. Is anyone interested? And several people said yes, and we said, okay, you're the pilots. But the people that, it's several months later, the people that show up at these first meetings are probably not the same people that said they were interested in the survey. They probably tapped somebody on the shoulder and said, go to this, you're leading it.
Right.
And so, and in it, even if it's the same person, they've long since forgotten what made them say yes, because it's months later, and they don't know what we're offering. So they've hopefully watched those videos, but they're showing up, and some of them are in the same position you are.
Right.
Yeah, so
I
the
guess
first
from
conversation
outcomes, like, I don't know what our scope is in terms of what are we promising here, because like this was a big thing when we were starting with DHIS2 training, is like we're not going to be implementing their whole organization, right? So like when we're asking them about like choosing measures and indicators, like we're not saying for your entire organization, and I haven't done a huge look at the registry, but the registry only includes a small amount of stuff right now. So I mean, we can ask them kind of, what do you want? But in that question, it can't be too broad, because if they say, well, I want this, we say, well, no, you're not getting that. So what do you want, but within this, right?
What I prefer to start out broad. So I prefer, they've seen the video, so they know that we're not talking about, an unlimited and infinite number of indicators. But then I want to find out what made people come to this meeting. And so what I hear from you is somebody tapped you on the shoulder and told you to come, and you don't really, you don't have a mandate, you haven't really been briefed internally, you're not really sure what you're doing. I assume that's going to be true of many of these agencies. So I want to say, okay, what's your role? And you say, well, you answer it, and then I'd say, well, what are your hopes and fears? And you might say, I don't have a clue, I'm just here because I was told to. Or you might say, we're getting a lot of pressure from donors, and we need to deliver this. I would like to know that. Even if we're not going to ask it, it gives me an idea of what the context is, and it tells me what indicators we may have to add. So
I'm happy to keep it a broad question for sure. I think that's fair.
So if they say, well, I don't know, that's fine, then it's a short conversation. So let's just assume you've said, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a safe assumption. And then I'm going to say, like, the first conversation it really is a conversation where I'm asking each person, well, what do you think? What do you want? How do you think we could help out? What kind of information would be useful? And I have a conversation and I hope to open it up. And then I say, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to choose a minimum number of data collection tools that's going to give you useful information that you can use right away. And then if you want more later, you can add them. But for now, let's work with the minimum. And at that point, they've already, I probably don't need to go through the logic model because we've covered it, right?
Well, I mean, we've either covered it or in my case, not covered it.
Uh-huh.
I mean, if I say I don't know, then we've covered it by acknowledging that we don't know what it is.
All right.
Right?
Okay, so here I'm switching my perspective. I'm now talking to you as the trainer, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The life cycle of evaluation is in most agencies. Most agencies don't have an evaluation person on staff.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know much about evaluation. They're not that interested in it. But when they get an RFP to get funding, many of the funders are saying we want a logic model and we want an evaluation plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so if that's what they need, if they need it for a funding proposal, then they can put together a real quick thing for a funding proposal from this page.
Well, yeah,
maybe that's all they need. Go ahead.
Yeah. So for me, the question is why? No, I'm sharing my. I'm looking at my screen as I'm taking notes. So the video people will be seeing my screen as I swap back and forth.
Okay.
I'm wondering why, like as a question, kind of saying like, why do you need a logic model?
Right.
Because
that's a good question. Yeah.
Like you're saying, if it's for a specific RFP that's either coming up or they have a contract that's ending, and so yeah, we need something for this, or we have something coming up, we need to prepare our questions for the RFP. But if they don't, kind of similar, like what is your role? Why do you need? Why are you here?
I don't think they need it. I don't think they need it. So many people will not need to look at this page.
Will not need to look at the create a logic model theory of change. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think they do. So they may, if they've had some evaluation experience, they'll want to see this. If they're filling out a funding proposal, they'll probably want to see this. This is also a lightweight way of finding relevant indicators, because you click on employment and right away you see all the employment indicators that are related to the OCASI. So it brings you into the indicator registry in a non-scary way, I think.
Can you click back? And where did you just click?
You see the outcomes?
There and you clicked on the outcomes and you clicked on employment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this will tell you what are all the measures that have to do with patient experience. Well, Tracy hasn't done that yet, but she will be in the next few days.
Yeah. So this is I'm going to be asking a lot of simple, like silly questions maybe, but yeah, I don't, like, for example, my position right now, if I'm representing logical outcomes, like I don't know what questions we need as logical outcomes. And of course, I could always make a guess, but that guess is based on nothing. In terms, like, beyond just what I'm thinking at this moment. It's not connected to logical outcomes logic model or what we require. It's just, it would be my best guess. So I guess when we have a quick start with, when I work with clients on DHIS too, like by the time I'm talking to them and by the time the contracts are signed, it's like we're working on this project, which covers this area. It's like this amount of blah 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 with these data collection tools and things like that. So I just feel like I'm a little bit lost still in terms of like looking at all those indicators and saying, well, like I could apply a filter of saying like which are even applicable to logical outcomes or which are applicable to my organization, but beyond that, if I don't know, it's the question that you're asking, right? It's the why.
Okay, let's. I think you're right. So let me try another way of doing it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're here, and we can say, look, we could go through each of these as we did in the training video, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go straight to the core question, the most practical question, and that's what data are you going to collect? So we're going to go into this review data collection tools. Here we are. This is all the stuff in the menu right now.
Yeah.
And you may want to add things to the menu. If there's something that you really, really want to measure, then let us know and we might be able to add it, or just, we'll put it into a work plan. But for now, this is what you have. And so what you see here is 6 different surveys. And the surveys, each survey is a bunch of questions that you can choose from to collect data on. But you can't choose all of them because you don't want to create a burden of data collection on your people. So you want to choose the very minimum number of questions that's going to help you get the information that's meaningful to you. So we're going to go through each one of them. And then later on in your homework, we want you to fill it out and choose the ones that you would really like to measure. But for now, I'm going to go through them each quickly. Nick, is that a better way to do it?
That sounds good. I think I like where we're headed. What I'm still stuck on, and this is good why we have what we're doing, is the data that's meaningful for me.
Yeah.
So assuming that I am the use case here, my response would probably be like, I need to go talk to my manager and get back to you. And
well, that's your homework. That's your homework.
Right, but this is what I'm saying. If we're assuming that a lot of people are in my position, we're going to get a lot of people saying, well, stop right there. I need to check before I can do this. So what questions then do we give them to ask their manager? Or
that's good. This is perfect. And we may need a training video just for this, okay?
Yeah, maybe this like I think this idea of purpose or what the meaningful, like where are we, that's definitely something that they can prepare before session 1, because as long as they have that understanding, even if it's a vague understanding, we want to improve our newcomer workshops. Like at least now we have something that we're focused on. It's a project or something.
Right. Okay, so I'm gonna
I don't know if this is.
No, it's okay. Well, the thing is that I've been stewing away at this for a long time, and so this is why I want the training team to help out. So let me show them to you, and then you can tell me how I should describe it. Okay, so they're split up into who's filling them out. So this first link is surveys about management and team effectiveness that can be filled out by all the staff in your whole organization. The second is program assessment tools, and they would be filled out only by the program managers. The program manager might fill it out once a year about her program. And then you have an organization level tool. This could be like the finance person could fill it out about the finance system, and that might happen every 2 to 3 years or during strategic planning. So that's how the menu is split up. And then the second group is questions about clients and participants, which we'll cover in a minute. But these first, only your staff need to fill them out. So we suggest you start with some of these because it'll give you a feel for the tools without bothering your clients.
Yeah, it sounds good. This is really good.
So let's look at the management and team effectiveness. This is the kind of thing you could ask all your team to do. And I've heard from Sarah that she wants this filled out. She wants one of them filled out from all of our people at Logical Outcomes.
Cool.
And so you've got team effectiveness. There are 5 behaviors. Now I don't know that I like the way this is looking all that much. Like it's busy, but that's the kind of input that it's not my job.
Right. And we've assigned a couple people to be looking through formatting stuff.
Exactly. So this may be a light gray in the background, but just let's assume that it's looking nice. And then what you want to do is say, this is you fill it out for your experience as a team member at Logical Outcomes. And you say, this is one of the things that a team needs is a feeling of psychological safety. So if people are afraid of asking for feedback, that's a bad sign. If they're afraid about expressing opinions, so the questions to ask yourself are, do all team members feel comfortable brainstorming in front of each other? Strongly agree or not?
I'm getting a Pavlovian response to a large survey we developed maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
If you remember this. It ended up being like 200 pages.
Yeah. This is one page. This is it. That's the whole survey.
No. I'm just because I'm saying we're going back to. I'm not letting go of this core thing here, which is what's the purpose? Why are we doing this, right?
Yes.
Because as soon as you start showing, and I'm actually amazed. The more that now that I'm actually getting this walk through and having seen the overview video, it's actually designed very, very intuitively. It's really nice.
Good.
So what that means for me is what I'm thinking about is that people will then say, this is so great, I want to do everything and jump on everything.
Right.
And so now we have to design the actual things to hold them back from doing too much, because they'll say, oh, this is a great question, that's a great question, we never asked this question, that's so much, oh my God. So then how do we prove minimum, right? So going back to the core of what's the question, what's the purpose?
Exactly.
Going back to that.
Perfect. And one of the ways that I'm trying to control them is to say, you start out with the ones that you ask your staff so that you're not plaguing the poor clients.
Yeah, of course. But I'm already seeing, if anyone clicks into this, immediately saying, well, they're all great. I want to do all of them. Let's just do all of them. So
this one is it's just 2 surveys, and each of them are 1 page. So the team effectiveness, that's what Sarah wants for everybody.
Yep.
And then this is manager effectiveness, and this is heavy duty, right? This is your training team. What would they say about you on each of these 8 behaviors?
Oh, geez. They'd be too scared to send in their results.
Right. Exactly. So, and so I would say this is Sarah's brave to offer this.
Yeah.
But this all of a sudden wakes people up, right? Because it is relevant for everybody. And Google, we took both of these from Google Rework. Google has put millions of dollars into research on the human resources, and this is they ask people, all the staff, to fill this out. I think twice a year for all their managers, and then the managers get the scores. And if the managers score low, they get intensive coaching to improve their behavior.
Wow.
So this is a massive investment on Google's part. And if we could say, look at these. If managers got better on these, a workplace would be much easier.
We can all agree. Yeah.
So it's beautiful. So we're saying, hey, with evaluation, just use these 2. I mean, that might be the minimum. So now let's go through the second one, the program level assessments. Okay, let's look at this. Now these are all.
So this is looking at not necessarily the actual process; it's looking at the program itself.
That's right. So this might be done for each program once a year, or once every 2 years, whatever. So the program person would say, "Is there a community need? Is there community support? Is it culturally relevant, and so on?" And then that would be that is one kind of panel. It's one.
It's all very great, and it looks like you've already done a lot of paring down. Obviously, obviously there's millions of questions out there. So I just keep going back to why wouldn't someone choose all of them?
Actually, so far it would be fine.
Okay.
So far, all of these would be
the internal
great.
stuff you could do. Yeah.
And and I would say all of them are good. So, and actually keep asking me this, because so far I would recommend all of them. So the previous one, to ask about each program, that would be good. And then what you would do is feedback to your funder and say, you know what, everybody said there's a high need, but it's not culturally appropriate. You probably need to do something.
Yeah.
So you also want to think about who you're going to be showing this to. So this one is a critical incident summary. Now, if you already have one in your organization, you don't need this.
Okay.
But if you say this is like March, 2027, this needs to be a little better. It should be automatic, right? Why do you need to?
Right, automatically in the date that you are in.
Yeah, exactly. And then sources. Okay, a client, came up with a problem around service delivery. It's reportable. Nobody was hurt, but we're concerned about it. And then this is what happened. Submit.
Oh, so you can do this many, many, many times.
Exactly.
This is more of an incident report. Okay, I see. Yeah.
That's right. Exactly. And it shouldn't be critical. It should be just reportable incident. So there's a little bit that has to be done around this. But, if you don't have this already, you should have it. And if you don't have it, you can use ours.
Right. Okay.
And that's it. So far, it's 2 and 2, and both of them are recommended. Now, organization level tool. So let's look at this. This is equity and service delivery. So this is your organization structured in a way that attends to power differentials, that tailors care programs and services to context and so on.
This already looks a lot more complex. So this one you can't do frequently.
That's right. You would do it maybe once a year, but it would be or strategic planning, and all of these are managers.
Yeah, these are high-level decision makers. Yeah.
That's right. And so that's it. So So far,
So far, all
if
that
somebody,
internal
all of
stuff
them would be great.
could
Yep.
be easily cool.
And then you say, okay, questions and participants. Let's look at that. Well, questions and participants, sometimes, what do you want to find out from your client?
Yeah. So this makes a lot more sense that it's picking and choosing, because immigration
Yeah.
status might not be applicable to some people,
Exactly.
or they choose not to track country of origin or whatever.
That's right. Exactly.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
There you go. So it's like, must you,
Yeah. Now here's a question. So you just passed by gender.
Yeah.
Do we, if someone says, yeah, we want to track gender, but we don't use all 5, do we argue to keep the options?
I would recommend Gender MFX.
Okay.
And this one, I think, needs a little bit of work.
Yeah.
Like, there's
You'll have a lot of mutants.
yeah, well, it's
X-Men.
the way this is an emerging international standard,
Okay.
and what agencies can choose how they want to put this. And for some reason, it's just not there. Like, I don't know who, it's Tracy and we, and it ended up like this. So somebody needs to say, with square brackets, this can be worded in a way that, or we could have recommended wording, but we can say you can do something else.
Right. I'm just thinking more about, like, you have one that's MFX and you have the other one as MF non-binary, prefer not to describe. Like, so I guess the taxonomies are different, right?
Yeah, but they're all going to end up being this.
Okay,
and so in the DHIS2 disaggregation, that's what it's going to be.
Exactly, and I was asking. I use gender as an example, but I'm more kind of to make that a broader question.
Yeah.
How much are we willing to customize disaggregations for clients?
Okay, great question. So the first question is that we need to be able to say some of these are recommended.
Yeah, which gender would be, for example.
That's right. That's recommended. And then we need to say something about, for all of them, if you want to know the rationale, you have to go to the indicator registry, because we're trying to keep this really lean.
Yeah.
But we do need something written about X, because if it's male, female X, it should be MFX, etc. But now your other, I forgot your other question.
Are we allowed to, or how much to customize?
There is some rewording that is permissible.
Okay.
And that would be controlled by me and Tracy.
But we're not like adding or subtracting multiple options.
No.
Okay.
No. No,
cool.
It's these. We spent days and days and days researching these.
No, I trust. I believe and trust in you. I just want to make sure when they say we do this, but we don't keep track of X gender. It's like no, you do. Like this is part of the deal.
Yeah, and this one, X actually means no answer. It means other. It means anything you want it to make.
Yeah, so, I was just using that as an example. It's
a great example. Yeah, no, it's a great example because we spent a lot of time looking at the different sexual orientation, all of these. And so if somebody say, well, we would prefer adding something like this, we could say...
There's a lot of reasons no. Read all this.
It's just, it's more like these are the ones that are validated in the literature.
Yeah.
And so if you find another one that's validated, then let us know and we may be able to add it.
Right.
So that's the kind of
response,
gentle answer. Now, if they are really insistent on it, we can say, what are you willing to live with now? And we will add that to the work plan because we can't afford, like, we're kind of at the end of our budget for indicators.
Yeah.
So there's some, we want to hear what people want. We don't want to shut them down.
Okay.
So that's why you start out with the open-ended questions.
Yeah.
And when you take notes, you can say, I'm going to take this back to Tracy. And then Tracy can look through and say, actually, that is under our potential maybe pile. So that's really easy for us to add.
So we definitely want to collect the questions and requests, and we don't want to shut anything down.
Exactly.
Now that being said, if they are kind of shooting in the dark, and because this will never happen because all the clients are fully educated and aware of what's going on. But assuming someone's kind of like, well, why we never did this before? Why would we have to do that? I mean, there is a kind of boilerplate response saying, like, all of this
These
stuff
are
has been
validated.
validated. There's
That's
a whole
right.
reason we're doing this. Therefore, like, nothing is unintentional. Like, everything has a reason. And then we can get into the, if you want to expand and get another validation
Well, what you're showing also is the importance of going back here.
Yeah.
Going back to the registry, because you can say, okay, good point. Let's look at this.
Exactly. Yeah.
So this is where it's derived.
That might be enough to shut up some people.
Well,
Just
it's not shutting up.
Wow,
no, this is, yeah, exactly. So each one of these has a little essay.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's look at this. Well, this data element is, this is how it's constructed. And
yeah,
this
it's
is
lovely. I mean, this is incredible. We were talking about this for months.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm amazed at how it looks. It looks really, really, really good.
Isn't it gorgeous? Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I'm so happy with this. But so what you want, this is also educating people about it. Your team needs to understand what validated means.
Yeah.
Your team needs to be able to say, hey, good question. Let's go to this in the registry. So if they say, well, I don't like that, hey, good point. Let's look at this. You go to it. You say, here it is. Take a look at it. Maybe discuss it with your colleagues. Mm-hmm. So it's this our usual combination of openness and rigor, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
So this what we need to do then is have recommended on each of them, and that hasn't happened, and there's some usability stuff that we need to handle.
Yeah, I mean, the demographic stuff is, I mean, if you're not working with these people, then obviously you don't ask that question. So
Yeah,
you can easily
that's
do
right.
that. And then beyond that, if you just scroll down, like, most of this stuff is just basic demographic stuff. So it's really like, do you track it or not? Because are you working with these types of people or not?
That's right. And remember, they won't get anybody's names. So
yeah, you can tell that here. Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't want to make people fill out these long. You may have this information already in your own systems, and so if you're asking somebody a question about, how do they feel about services, do you really need to ask all of these demographic questions every time? You may need to ask some of them because you may have the suspicion that women are not as happy with you, so you want to ask that.
Yep.
Or you may want to get a feel for our gender identity and how it affects their happiness with the services and so on.
So far, this is a pretty intuitive list and
Thank you.
ways to choose
them.
Right. Yeah, this is good.
So the next one is surveys or interview questions for clients and participants. And so it looks like survey questions, but it can be done on face-to-face or in telephone interviews as well. So it doesn't have to be surveys. So we're talking about the questions. And so these really are menus. And we start out, we only have 2 qualitative questions. One is just a suggestion, and the agency can decide how they want to do it. So it could be, my biggest piece of advice, or I would like the agency to do what.
Okay, the prompt can be customized.
The prompt can be, exactly. And it's just open text. And then you have, how often did staff treat you with courtesy and respect? Now, this is, I don't think this should be here. This is the code.
Yep.
And so if you can write that down, this is the kind of stuff I need from your people. This is a usability issue.
Okay, so let me just,
should have,
one second. Sorry, people are just watching me struggle to take notes.
Okay.
So what are we in? We're in the, which survey?
We're in the surveys or interview questions to be answered by clients or participants.
Answered by clients, ... Okay, yep. And that's, it appears...
It's immediate.
The question code... the question code shows up where, in front of the question, right?
Yeah, so we just should have the question. And then underneath, in the scoring, we have code. But it's invisible.
Okay, I took a little screenshot. Cool.
And then the same, would you recommend this agency? Financial capability. So you can see it's really all over the place. This is around satisfaction, and then all of a sudden we're into financial capability.
Yeah, so this is when it actually becomes much more about making that right choice and not just saying, let's take the whole thing.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of them are repeats.
Because they're from different measures.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're thinking of removing the financial capability panel. So the order has to be thought through as well.
The order, like they'll have to decide on the order that they want.
Okay, well, all right. So the two things. We can decide on the order. I'm not convinced that this is the best order to show people the questions.
Okay,
These are settlement agencies. Why did we start with financial capability? Or, you know, we started with how often did staff treat you with courtesy and respect? That's pretty good, because I think everybody should have these three questions.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden it goes into financial capability. I don't think that's a terribly interesting question for most settlement agencies.
Yeah,
especially since you've got 10 questions here about financial capability.
I think I remember this specific measure. Yeah, yeah. I just took a note of that the questions should be reorganized by LO staff.
And we may, Tracy and I were saying, because it's kind of a hassle to turn indicators into DHIS2, we were thinking we would put aside the panel questions for now and just leave them out for now, unless people wanted them, but we haven't decided.
Can you define panel question?
Okay, good. So a panel is like in a health situation when you go in and get a blood test. Generally, you get a panel of blood tests, meaning, you know, you get LDL and HDL and so on. All of those individual blood tests make up a panel. And so we've got a panel here, meaning a bunch of different questions, all under financial capability. It's like, I sometimes call it an instrument, but
yeah, I remember. I remember looking at some of those. There's like a single indicator that requires like 5 different questions combined. Yeah, we're calling that's called a panel. Okay.
Well, some people call it a panel. Some people call it an instrument. There's no set vocabulary, so it's not surprising you didn't know it. But financial capability, we may you know, put it at the very end. Anyway, I'm going to keep going.
That makes sense to me. Yeah.
Okay, so employment status, yes. Now, employment status, here you've got the code. Like it's not consistent here. So up
this
here
is just
you have
a formatting
just the question.
issue.
Yeah.
I've already captured this and got a screenshot.
Okay, got it.
So we can move on.
All right. Did you work at a job or business? And then most significant change. There's the second a qualitative question. I don't think that this. I think the suggestions is really important. I think I could live without this sense of belonging. You know, people can choose it or not. These are all really good indicators.
Right, if it's useful for you. This makes a lot more sense of saying, like, this is a... I feel like I have a lot more capacity to talk to someone about whether a sense of belonging is a minimum necessary requirement. That I can discuss about. It was the earlier questions but we've all agreed that those are all great anyways, so this is good.
Well, that's why we go into the logic model, because that's how you're supposed to say, in my agency, my program, I'm trying to reach employment. So,
yeah, no, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess it just
okay, got it.
The more that I'm learning about it, the more clear it's just getting more clear what people are actually going to be doing and what they're looking at. Therefore, my questions are being kind of resolved as well.
Okay, good. And here, making ends meet, we're definitely getting rid of that.
Okay.
So somebody has to...
I specifically know the making ends meet. Yeah, I remember doing that.
So somebody needs to take that away, and I don't know who's... So you've captured it. And then somebody has to tell Trivender or whoever's managing the Lime survey to take those away.
Yep.
Okay, informational support. Here's another... I don't know how useful this is. But this is... I mean, it's a nice setup. It's a good indicator, but I don't know that it fits into their logic model. But hey, you know, to give them extra stuff that they turn down, that's good. So exactly. we may want to keep it that way, just so that people have choice.
This informational support, these are supposed to be asked to clients, right?
Yeah, these are all to clients.
Interesting.
Because if
The informational support is an interesting one because I felt like that could be asked to staff, but it wasn't there.
Yeah, this is that's interesting. You could definitely do it with staff, but you know you've got my friends. So this is a panel isn't necessarily validated as a single instrument, and so if you wanted to ask logical outcomes people, you could get rid of the my friends.
Yeah, and just keep the rest of it.
And keep the rest of it.
So I feel like actually this would be useful to ask logical outcomes people.
So this kind of conversation is good, right? This is what we want to get at. Okay, so then patient-reported quality of life. Do we need this? Don't know. That's the end of it. And then we've got observations. So this is the final one. Observations and progress notes to be filled out by staff. This is when you're sitting down with somebody and finding out what is important to them. This is what you would be filling out. And so you would say, if you're interested in income, that means money from wages, pensions, subsidies, and so on. You're saying, where are they in terms of the knowledge they have around their income situation? How about their behavior? How about the actual status? Where are they? Are they homeless? Are they fine? And healthcare expenses, you know, we can, that's more relevant than others. This came out of the States, right? So this is relevant for some people, like seniors, not so much for everybody else in Ontario.
Yeah, for a lot of, I see what you mean. Very interesting.
And then you go next. This is housing for living area.
Okay,
Behavior and status. Then you have communication with community resources. Knowledge, behavior, status. Then you have a self-sufficiency matrix, which is what the Trillium Foundation has recommended. And so the idea here is that you ask each client what is important to them, and then also where they are. And what's missing here, in some of them, there's another question that says, is this important to you? So this is how you negotiate with the client what they care about as opposed to what you as a counselor think they should be caring about.
Right. So what the last few pages we've been looking at, this is all a staff member filling out for
or with
with or for someone based on an interview or live with them or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's it. This is the whole thing. Yeah.
So cool. So then they go through that. They come to us with their list.
Okay, so I'm going back to you as in your other role. So what do we do with logical outcomes?
Right. So I get what you're saying now. So you were earlier on a call that was not recorded. You were saying that someone goes through this and they fill out kind of the top level of any of these options to choose to say that we want that one. Yeah.
So let's see. Submit. I'm going to write submit. So print your answers.
So
then you can PDF export it, and then you can then take these to your colleagues and say, okay, what do we want to collect?
There you go.
So they can print it out. Yeah.
That's even easier, maybe. Because then, so there's a little process in terms of going through the survey, but I like this idea of like printing up the PDF and sending it around. Then they come back with either the PDF that's highlighted or just like a bullet point list of the questions, or if they're really nice, like the actual indicator codes because they did all this extra work. But basically, we're going to take their list and turn that into the indicator codes and then give that to...
So, okay, where would they get the indicator codes?
Well, they'd be in the registry, wouldn't they?
Oh, okay. Right. So they could, okay.
I mean, I'm saying that, like, they're probably not going to do that step. That's the step that we do.
Yeah,
where they say, these are the, like, I want this income money from wages. They say, okay, so what's the indicator code that we have for that? And then, and so probably someone from my team or a junior member does this, does that translation, and then maybe we might not even need it because Georgie's probably listening and saying, "Oh, I can do that with a macro on the spreadsheet." But basically, you select the rows that you want from your master thing, and you export that to a XML, and then you upload that to DHIS2. I mean, is that kind of the rough?
Okay, well, we're talking about some. Okay, let's say that you are going to you go to people at Logical Outcomes.
Yeah.
And but it sounds like you would recommend the. Let's go back. So we're going to go to Evaluation Tools. We're going to go to Data Collection Tools, and it sounds like you might recommend all of the questions in these three.
Yeah.
And then you might recommend a question around would you recommend this agency to your friends and family? Well, friends and family, it's to colleagues or something. You may or may not say we want one or two of these kinds of questions.
Well, there was the other one in the final survey that I kind of liked.
Oh yeah, that's right. So for you would recommend all of these.
Those
and
complete
then,
data sets plus like
right,
some selects
plus,
from the others.
Yeah, maybe one or two.
Yep.
And then how would you check that out? Well, you would go to Sarah, or you would ask for a team meeting, and you'd say, "This is what I'm thinking. What do you guys think?"
Yeah, exactly.
And then you would come back to me, and then you would say, "These are the ones we want."
Yeah.
Then somebody has to take those and customize a Lime survey for you. And I don't know how we're going to do that. That's a process.
So customize a Lime survey. So you mean prepare one Lime survey with all of the things, or prepare like if I did? So for example, I did 3 bullet points there. So would those be 3 different Lime surveys for me, or would that be one Lime survey for me?
Well, this is what we have to work out. So say you say, okay, this is what we want. Then we've set you up with a workspace right here. Here's your workspace.
Yeah.
And so you go to My Favorite Indicators, and here are all your favorite indicators. But you're not that interested, so you're going to ignore that, okay? Then you've got your reports and dashboards. Well, guess what? You don't have any yet.
Because you don't have a DHIS2 instance. Yeah.
That's right. But what you do have is these links, and these links each bring you to your questions. And so
My survey.
Your survey, and all of them are for different people, right? So they can't all be one survey. So, right?
But, and it could also be possible to have multiple surveys for program managers, right?
Exactly. That's right. And so say you're sending out a question to all of your clients in a particular program. So you click on, for clients. These are all, none of these links work. So that takes you to this. Say you've customized it in the sense that this is for logical outcomes. Does it have logical outcomes at the top? I don't know. But what you want to do is send. You don't have control over this. You're not an administrator. Logical Outcomes is the administrator. What you want to do is to say, I want to send this survey to the following 25 email addresses. So you have to, what would happen is that you go into a form, and the form says, choose the survey, and you choose it, and then it says, who should we send the survey to? And you fill in text addresses, email addresses, whatever. And then we send them out. Then we get the information. The information gets transferred to DHIS2, and then the agency can see the anonymized aggregate information in their DHIS2 report.
So, so my first question would be, do we want to allow, at this point, organizations to have multiple surveys for different users? Because at the moment I see a list of like, program managers, clients, staff. So if they pick and they say, well, it turns out I want 3 different project manager surveys.
That's okay.
And I want 3 different staff surveys and 2 client surveys, and This is all okay. So we don't like. Well, I'm trying to figure out like at what point do we say that's too much?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a good question. Your logical outcomes. What are you saying? Let's work with logical outcomes.
Well, at the moment, we have those three. So we have like the staff surveys and manager surveys.
So for the staff surveys, you would say, send this survey to the following 50 email addresses, right?
Yeah.
And you would just cut and paste the email addresses into a box.
Right, but there's a couple of. So okay, assuming it's one survey for one group that's just sent out for the group, like, and it's just like unified and easy. That I understand what you had described as a process, conceptually. What I'm kind of wondering is, because we're still unclear as to the actual steps in the process of taking their request and putting that into a Lime survey and doing the this and the this, are we giving ourselves are we capping ourselves and saying, look, like building 4 surveys for the managers for this one pilot project when they have 3 other different demographics that they're sending out, like at a certain point, it just gets way too much. And we could say something like, look, just make one survey for project managers and then have like 2 sections to it and say like, please fill out section 1, ignore section 2. And I don't know, I'm just trying to like.
This is exactly where I am. What you're describing is where I'm.
Perfect.
I've reached this and I don't know what to do.
So
you have now caught up.
Okay.
And so how many surveys can we afford to set up for each agency? I don't know.
Okay. So
all of the things you're talking about.
So my initial intuition would be to say we're willing to give you one survey per demographic group. But can you go back to that list that you had, the non-existent or the non-working?
Well, for pilots.
Back to, there's a list of, there we go. So you have project managers, senior managers, staff, clients. So you have 5 groups there, yeah?
Yeah.
So I would say something like we're willing to make up to 6 surveys.
Right.
And then we talk. Like if you want more than 6, then we have to slow down. But we're willing to make, 1 for each plus 1. And that means that if one of those has nothing, then you can have 2 and another, whatever, how you want to move it around. But if we know that we're not making any more than 6 per client, then at least, and we encourage them to go less. But if they all push the boundaries, at least we have like a kind of pilot cap where we say,
I
look,
like that idea a lot. So say you're sending it out for clients.
Yeah.
And you've got you've got a survey for clients, but you've got a drop down in the setup. You've got a drop down that says which program it is, because you need a token to tell us what program you're talking about, so we can code it appropriately in DHIS2. With skip logic, right?
So, well, if you're asking a program specific question, which a lot of people probably will, right? So it'll be like the same, like we want to ask survey A, but we're going to be asking survey A to all our staff for each one of these 5 projects, right? Is that kind of what we're talking about?
Well, let me just talk about clients, okay? So let's not talk about staff for a sec.
Okay.
So you've got 5 different programs in your organization, and you've got 1 client survey, but you want to
cover all the staff. Yeah, okay, cover all the. Yeah.
So you go into this your workspace and you say, I want to send out a client survey, and it's for this program because we need to code it by program in DHIS2.
Yep.
So there might be a drop-down menu where you can say choose the program, and then there might even be a menu where you say choose the questions that you want to send out in this round. So you have the list of the menu of questions, and then you have a yes/no flag that says, yeah, I want to include this. And then you have a box where it says, here are all the people I want to send it to.
It seems a little bit like there's...
Too much?
I think you're opening up the box again.
Okay, so for sure you need the name of the program, because
I
otherwise
mean,
can't.
you need the name of the program because we need to know where the answers are related to.
Right. And you need somewhere to put the email addresses of the people to send it to.
Definitely.
Right.
And at a certain point, and where I would lean towards the, like, at the formation of the survey, there's someone who decides, okay, for this program, these questions are asked, for that program, those questions are asked. But whenever this person
yes.
sends it out, you shouldn't
it.
have to decide because it just,
Okay. No,
yeah.
no, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so that means you can have 5 different sort of forms of the survey using skip logic. And so you've got the client survey, which is ours, it's the demo one, right? And then you say, for this program, which questions do you want to ask? And so that if you choose this drop down, then it asks these 5 questions. If you choose that drop down, it chooses these 6 questions. But it's all on the top of the same survey. You following me?
Yeah, it's getting a little bit into survey coding, which I'm
Exactly.
forgetting about. But yeah, I get if you can use one single survey with all the questions and use a combination of skip logic so that when different people go through the survey, they answer different questions depending on what project they're working on, and those series of questions are cataloged separately so that we can upload them within different, like, what would it be? It'd be different attribute categories, I think, in HIS2.
Exactly.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do it for you, but I understand.
And so that keeps it, as you're saying, then you've got the 5 surveys, right? But each of the 5 surveys, most of them isn't going to be that, the program managers and so on. There's not a lot of options.
Yeah, I'm more thinking if someone's like, oh, I want, like, this is really, like, if it's, because, and actually this is something more worth asking, because, like, for doing, like, a staff or no, the client survey, like what you're asking with this drop down, are we considering that one survey, or are we considering that 5 for them?
Well, exactly. It's got to be one, right?
I understand it's got to be one, but can we do 6 surveys that all have 5 options? Like that, all of a sudden, like if everyone asks for that, that's. I'm just worried about exponential, like, expansion of effort.
So the way that I'd like to do it for these pilots, is to ask them what they want.
Okay.
And then see how difficult it is to do.
Okay, so you were leaning on that side of it. Okay.
Yeah, and but you might say, let's start out with one survey, and one form for one survey, and let's see how it works for you. And then if they come back and say, oh, that was great, now I want to do, make tweaks, at that point we'll have a better idea of the expense. Because where we want to get to is, how much does it cost to set somebody up on this?
Exactly.
You can see it's going to be a whole lot cheaper than, a quick start, right? Because it's so constrained. And we can add more and more questions.
Yeah, they can spend so much of their own time going through the registry and making their choices and doing that thing, and that's so much of that front end work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I agree with, in that case, then for the pilot, I like what I agree with the mentality of saying we want to lean on the side of giving them full options. We don't want them to feel like anything is restricted or held back.
At this point, because it's already very restricted.
Right, exactly. And we don't, and the purpose is to expand this to a larger scale and more organizations. So the idea is eventually it will continue to expand anyways.
Yeah. But we can start out by
saying, like, let's just do, instead of doing all 6 at a go, let's start with one. We can, and we'll say for the pilot as well that we do up to 6, no worries. And then if you really want more, then we have to really sit down and say, can we do this? But one survey can be massively complex because of the skip logic and everything.
Right, exactly.
Right, so then now we just kind of cross our fingers and hope that all of the pilot agencies don't ask for the most complex thing possible.
Well, they have to, what I'd like to do is to say, start by collecting some data and see how you use it. Because we're interested in how it gets reported. So with logical outcomes, Sarah's already interested in this team effectiveness. That by itself is a pretty pretty significant intervention for us, right?
It is, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how are we going to use it? Where is it going to be reported? Who gets the reports?
Yeah, what's the reaction plan and stuff?
That's right. And so that part of piloting is that whole life cycle. And so if you say, let's be modest about what we're collecting. So, one for program managers, one for senior managers, maybe one for all staff.
I like 6. Like 6 gives us one for all of them, plus a floater.
So if
they want to double up, then
I like that. That's a nice way to do it. Yes.
Cool. So that if they say, I want one for each, we say, very easy. And they say, I want one for each, but I also want a second one. We say, also good. Mm-hmm. Say, I want 2 for each. We say, nah, slow down.
Yeah, that's good. And then because what you say is, let's just see where we are and then see how you're using the data.
Yeah, good point. Great. And, this is really good. So at this point, we're at 90 minutes.
Okay.
Or no, are we? Or no, we're only at an hour, maybe. Oh, we're only at an hour, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought we started at 4. Yeah, so we're at an hour. So at this point, what do we want to... Because I feel like we've covered quite a lot in terms of...
Yeah, why don't we stop recording?
Okay.
And then talk about next steps.
Great. Okay, so that's the end of the recording. Thank you, everyone, for watching, if you are still watching. And I'm going to open this up and stop it.